All right, example 4. Again, if you need to go ahead and stop it and then try to see what you can do with it, and then play the video and see how we went and everything of that sort, you could do that. Now with it also, again, the most complicated side is the left side again. Just happens to be this time again. And with this, we have a fraction. So again, our first thing is we have fractions with unlike denominators. We need to combine fractions with so that they have the like denominators. Now with this one, there's nothing you can do with cosine x minus cosine y over sine x plus sine y. So you can't really do anything to simplify that fraction down. You can't simplify the other fraction down, so you have to combine them. You can't simplify, so we have to combine. And we should already know how to find a common denominator. So here, we're going to multiply our numerator by our denominator over here. And numerator and denominator, sorry, by our denominator here. Multiply numerator and denominator here by our denominator on this side. So now I did leave some stuff off because I'm not doing everything this time because we've done this a couple of times with our fractions and all good stuff. So everybody should be really good with fractions by the time we finish this part of the lesson. This is our denominator for the right fraction, sorry. And this is our left fraction. And then for the second part, we're going to multiply this fraction here by our denominator here. When you look at this, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much work. Yes, it's supposed to be. And again, this is to make you think, have a game plan, and then try to tackle that game plan. Or just to try to jump into it and see what you can get done, and it might actually work out for you. All right, so we're going to multiply these together. And hopefully, again, I won't have to do everything, but if you FOIL this part out, because it's this binomial times this binomial, so you have to FOIL, do that times that, and then this times that, this times that. So if you multiply the numerators together, we would get, oops, let's erase that right there. Oh no, get away. Okay, so we would get cosine squared x minus cosine squared y. And again, if you don't understand what happened with all the rest of the stuff there, stop the video, multiply it, FOIL it out, box it out, and see what happens and see why we got that as an answer. And then start the video back up again. I am not writing this small enough. There, I did. Okay, so that takes care of that fraction. And then here in this fraction here, again, if you FOIL it or box method it, you will get this answer of sine squared x minus sine y, sine squared y, sorry. Then our denominator is the exact same again. And again, it doesn't matter the order you put these in your denominator, as long as they are both there. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start combining things together. In other words, combine our numerators and have our same denominator. So let's do this color. All right, so we get that going on. We make it down to one fraction. Now, at this point, everybody hopefully can see, like, there's something going on here. We know we have trig identities that deal with sine and cosine, sine squared, cosine squared. So if we do, and we know sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, and we have a positive sine squared and a positive cosine squared here, then maybe we can try to regroup this or move things around so that they're together, the positive signs and negative signs and stuff, the stuff that are together that we can put together. So here, I'm going to put the cosine squared, the positive one, and the positive sine squared together. We're going to group them up together. And then we're going to put the negative cosine y squared y and negative sine squared y together. Okay. Now, with that, I need a little bit more space. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do, and because our trig identity is sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta, or x, whatever, I'm going to put the sines first. And you might be like, well, Mr. Hall, like, that didn't make any sense. Why we do it that way? Because we're trying to get it to look like our trig identity that we have. So that way we can go ahead and try to figure something out and work it out that way. All right, so now here, we know this part equals what? 1. Yes, everything equals 1 there. Now on this side here, you need to remember how to do something. We talked about factoring and doing all this stuff. If we factor out a negative 1, from both of these terms, it should help us out a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to say negative 1, parentheses. If we factor out a negative 1 out of both of these, it changes our sign. So I'm going to write this out first, and then I'll see if you can understand what we just did. So hopefully you remember how to factor things out. Okay, so here, if we factored out the negative 1 out of both of these, and we would get sine squared at y plus cosine squared y. And again, if we need to understand what happened, if we multiply this negative 1 back to both of these, negative 1 times sine squared is negative sine squared, right there. And negative 1 times cosine squared is a negative cosine squared y, there. So all we did was just factor out a negative 1. And then you're like, okay, but why we do all that? Perfect. Glad you asked. Again, we know this part right here equals 1, right? Right. So technically what we have going on this numerator, nope, don't do that. So technically this sine squared and cosine squared equals 1. And technically here we have a negative 1 that we factored out times 1. Because our sine squared and cosine squared is equal to 1 here. We're multiplying that by the negative 1 that we pulled out. And then we have all of that for our denominator. Ooh, sine y. All right. Now, again, hopefully everybody does understand. Again, sine squared, cosine squared equals 1. And if you can ever get those together, sine squared, cosine squared, always put them together. If you can, put them together because they always equal 1. And then also here on this side, if you factor out that negative 1 or pull out the negative 1 out of both of those, you would get 1 here. So yeah, so we have 1 for this part, minus 1, negative 1, sorry, that we pulled out times the 1 for the sine squared, cosine squared. All right, so then the last part is you have on top 1 minus 1. On the bottom, you still have all of that going on. Now, again here, I didn't multiply that out because I could see that that's probably not going to really help us with anything. That's why we didn't factor the denominator out. But if you look at 1 minus 1, we get 0 for our numerator. And 0 over anything other than 0 is just an answer of 0, right? Isn't that what we're trying to get here? Yes, it is. Now, this one, it took some time here too, and it's okay. I understand it. So here again, we get 0. And that's what we're trying to find on the right side is 0. So from the get-go, we're trying to get this left side to equal 0 to equal the right side. All right, so again, that took some time. So if you need to go back and look through it again and watch it again to make sure you understand what's going on, do that. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to get everything done during class, or even if you need to go home and do it and review back over it to make sure you understand, do that. It's very important. All right. So again, we went through this one. We got it. We get more practice, so hopefully getting a little bit better with everything. All right.